Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the PBB. This is their part number 4B81, 8x8, 652. This is likely the largest hinge that you'll end up seeing as an available product, or something that you might expect to be able to find in stock without something being absolutely custom manufactured. This is literally an 8x8 hinge. This is being used on a substantially thick door. I understand that they are 3-inch thick and that they are exceptionally heavy, in the 300-pound range, and that they are 8 foot tall. And the logic with the... and there was a wall condition. They certainly could have used a hinge not as wide as an 8-inch. But this is certainly a good option. So, first of all, let us bask in the glory of such a large hinge. You know, compared to the average size hand, that's a big hinge. Made of steel. Let's dissect the part number a bit, and then we'll talk about the application of where that's being used. This is a 4B81. 4B81 from PBB means it's a heavyweight hinge, which means this hinge is going to probably be somewhere in the 210 thousandths of an inch range in terms of leaf thickness. So 4 definitely stands for heavyweight. My caliper tells me this is 0.203. 0.203. Looking at their template, I can see that they call out the gauge of metal at 0.2 inch. So 200 thousandths of an inch, very thick and substantial hinge. The B means the B means ball bearing, certainly. A 4B is going to be a 5-knuckle hinge in a heavyweight thickness. That is a full mortise hinge. You can see when the leaves are brought parallel together, you can tell that they're meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and frame when they're installed. Okay, that's what that hinge is going to look like. The 8x8, well, that's a reference to the size of the hinge, and it's really important to understand the size of the hinge is the first dimension is defined as the height of this hinge. That's an 8-inch tall hinge. Happens to be 8-inch wide as well, but you can certainly appreciate if you were dealing with a rectangular hinge, like maybe 8x6, not an unusual hinge. If you were dealing like with if you were in the range of a 2.5-inch door, something smaller, an 8x5, if you're dealing with a 2.25-inch thick door, you have to understand that the height is the first dimension. Now, since we're talking about such an unusual hinge, 8-inch by anything, why would you want 8-inch tall? Well, the reason you'd want the height is because it's known that for every half of an inch that you increase your hinge height, I don't remember the exact specific percentage, but the percentage is as if it was between 15 and 20% the hinge's greater ability to handle the weight of a door. You'll very often see a standard practice on hollow metal doors that are larger than 3 foot, 3.6, 3.8, 4.0, that they're 5-inch tall hinges. They're just 1 3/4 thick doors, but they're 5-inch tall, and then either 4 wide or 4.5 wide. And that application is called out with a taller hinge because, why? The weight of the door is bigger. That's the bottom line. So this client has not only an exceptionally wide door, which kind of talks about this, but he has an exceptionally heavy door, which specifically refers to the height of the hinge. This is probably the heaviest single hinge. This hinge weighs 4.6 pounds. At least it does with its screw pack. The 652, that means a couple of things. It's made of steel, and then it has a satin chrome finish. Okay? Satin chrome finish on that. There is information down below this video that we can take a look at. Full mortise. It's full mortise because you can see from the swag on the hinge leaves here and here. That's what's called the swag. I've heard people pronounce it as swage. I just call it swag. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, but when you change a full mortise to a full surface, it's where you're changing the swag of the hinge leaf. If there was no swag, you'd have a full surface hinge. And again, it's just the bend that's right here, that bend. Okay. Heavyweight, indeed. There would not be a standard weight hinge, that would be 8-inch tall. 5 knuckle, you can see certainly why it's a 5 knuckle hinge. Ball bearing, there are 4 bearing packets on a heavyweight hinge. There would be 2 on a standard weight hinge. Recommended for doors over 3'4" in width and having a thickness of 2 inch or more. That's just a generic statement. This door is certainly far thicker than that. An 8-inch wide hinge doesn't necessarily mean that you're dealing with an unusually thick door. You could have a door where you simply have a need so that when the door, here's your frame, your wall can be over here. And this might be standing proud off of the face of the wall, so that when the door opens, the door gets out and around an unusual wall condition. So in effect, this could act as a wide throw hinge as well. And if somebody were to use the 8-inch width as a wide throw, but still have a heavy door where wide throw hinges are not load rated as well, and you could literally fit the screw pattern onto your door and leave a typical back set on your door thickness, yeah, this could act as a wide throw hinge as well. Does include 1/4-20 by 1/2-inch machine screws, and then number 14 by 1.5-inch wood screws. There ought to be enough here for everything, although it doesn't appear as if there is. There are definitely not enough screws here to do all wood or all machine applications. The way that the screw package has come from the factory is there are enough screws to get metal into one leaf and wood into the other leaf. Frankly, I don't know why they would include not adequate screws to do one composition of door and frame in a package. Certainly, I don't expect to see a steel frame prepped for an 8-inch tall hinge. I've never seen it. In the comment field, specify the thread type, the fastener type that you want. AWS is an abbreviation for all wood screws. AMS, all metal screws. Half wood, half machine. It would be machine screws. So absolutely define that, because while this hinge is just for stock and won't be shipped to a client without knowing the combination of fasteners that are required, you'll want to absolutely define that at the time of order so that you get the proper screws, so that when you show up to the job to hang a 300-pound, 8-foot tall door that's 3-inch thick, you've got enough wood screws. So definitely define that. Now, there's a link to the template that's below here, and that's a really cool document because it will show you what that hinge is going to look like in terms of its dimensions. And that template is going to show you an 8x6 and an 8x8. It doesn't give you, it doesn't hold you to, in the table down below is where it will differentiate between a 6 and an 8-inch. The top row is the 6-inch, even though I don't think that's defined. The bottom row is the 8-inch. You can tell by looking at the L dimension, obviously half of an 8-inch hinge, center line of the L dimension to the leaf, or the vertical axis of pivoting, that's going to be 4-inch, and that, of course, is going to be 4-inch. All of the other dimensions that they're referring to, from this leaf, from the edge of the leaf down to the center of all the holes, and then from one end over to all the center line, that's going to be the same on a 6 or an 8. The only thing that's going to be different is how far this kicks out. Now, the important part is that S dimension, 3.46, so you can kind of see, let's put a tape measure on this, over here, where you're going to fall out in terms of a 3-inch thick door. Okay, you can kind of get your head wrapped around where that hinge is going to fall in terms of the location of the screws. You're going to be plenty far away from all of those screws. And if you were doing a 2.5-inch door, I would think you'd be in good shape as well. 2 1/4 would probably be far too close to that screw, so I would probably not use this on a door that's 2 1/4, but be mindful that we're not calculating a proper 1/4-inch back set. So 2.5 would absolutely be the minimum, assuming that you're going to leave a 1/4 inch back set over here. So 2.5 would be the minimum. 2 3/4, 3 inch, 3 1/4, things of that nature. But now you have all the rest of the dimensions so that you can lay out, sketch out where the door is going to operate as it goes from 0, to 90 degree to 180 degree. So you can determine if this size of hinge is appropriate for your door thickness. The back set you'll use. Here are the variables: your back set, your door thickness, and what sort of clearance you require. How far off do you need that vertical axis of pivoting from the face of the door or the back side of the hinge or wherever you're referring to, so that that door will swing to the appropriate degree of opening. If you need it to go to 90 degree and that's it, probably not going to have too much of a problem. You would, of course, want to take into account the thought, what does this do to my projecting hardware? You don't want excessive projecting hardware. You don't want hardware hanging off the face of the door any more than it needs to. If you were trying to fit this onto a 2.5 inch thick door, be mindful that you're really going to have a whole lot of this hinge. You're going to end up having you know, 2 inch of this hinge hang off. And I would argue that it's probably too wide of a hinge. By all means, would it be too wide of a hinge? Unless, of course, you had a wall condition to get out around. When you're walking down a hallway and the doors swing into the hallway, you've got the barrels of the hinges projecting into the hallway. You really want as tight of a margin to the face of the door and the frame as your application will permit. So as you're calculating your back set, your thickness, any clearance that's required, also keep in mind, what is the amount of the hardware that's projecting off the face of the door, and can I minimize it? When you're dealing with an 8-inch tall hinge, you've got a 6-inch option and an 8-inch option, so you might have to pick the lesser of two evils in that case, but nonetheless be mindful of that as well. There is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page in our site. Before we get to that, this hinge is listed in our site in different finishes. Now, PBB keeps this hinge in stock, as do we generally, in satin chrome or oil-rubbed bronze, 652 and 640 finish. We have it listed in the site in a 600, which is prime coat, and we have it listed in the site as a 632, which is a polished brass. Okay, now, those are the four finishes that we have listed. These generally, if it's not in stock, will have an exceptional lead time, several weeks, 3 months, something in that range. You could very likely have a project. We've just ordered for a client 40 of these hinges, not a 4B81, but a 4B21, which means it's made of solid brass or bronze. These would be bronze because it's an oil-rubbed, forgive me, they were a 4B51 stainless steel because PBB can do a dark bronze equivalent powder coat, they call it a PVD, a powder coat finish on stainless. That's what it is. But that base material, the client had to have stainless, and they wanted the non-ferrous feature of stainless, but wanted oil rubbed, but didn't want the 4B21, the solid bronze hinge with the oil rubbed finish, because a solid bronze hinge with oil rub, that's a living finish. That hinge will change with time. It will basically patina or oxidize with exposure to the environment. When you take a 4B51, which is a stainless-based material, versus the 4B81, 21, 51, 81, brass or bronze, stainless steel, steel. This is steel. This is going to a coastal environment. They do not want ferrous-based material, and preferred stainless powder-coated so that the finish would remain stable, relatively certainly stable, over the life of the hinge, and not age like oil-rubbed would age. Keep in mind, any finish can be done. PBB is a fully capable hinge company, and they only do are hinges when it comes to finishing. In the environment of finishing, they take deep pride in their capabilities. Do be mindful that while they can give you whatever you ask for, they do have a long lead time because they're not keeping these large hinges in stock. Okay, great piece of work from PBB. They're very proud of what they do, and their hallmark is no one finishes the back side of their hinge except PBB, according to PBB. If you look at the rear side of a hinge, and that's not exactly true, but the back side of the hinge is finished all the time with a PBB hinge. They believe that it makes their product look better, and I certainly agree. The hallmark for me is, what does the finishing look like down here in the crotch of the hinge between the barrel and the leaf? And you can see that it's not consistent and thorough all the way through. I would not disqualify PBB for that, but I would tell you that my gauge of the quality of a finish is based on that, because if this was oil rub bronze, you're going to see that. Okay, so be mindful, that area right there. PBB is by far not nearly the worst offender when it comes to that. There are major companies who have been in business a lot longer than PBB that do a poor job at best in that regard. But be mindful, that's the measure that I use, and I think you should also consider it as well. An epic hinge from a very excellent company. Finally, there is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the PBB products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Any questions on the PBB 4B81 8x8 in a 652 finish, or 26D satin chrome, or any other PBB product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.